And in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the Nexus 4 and how it compares in 2016. First of all, without getting into the hardware of the actual phone, we'll have a look at the design. It's got glass at the front and the back, which is both Gorilla Glass. I mean, on the sides you've got this like nice little like rubbery like bezel around it, so it's much like, you know, easy to grip. It's quite nice how they've used different choice of materials on this phone. So you've got a glass back, you've got rubberized sides, and you've got like a chrome design around the side of the phone. In terms of the buttons of the actual phone, you've got two buttons here for the volume up and volume down key. It does feel quite, you know, clickable. With some other phones like you know, the Galaxy S6, it's a bit hard to press some of the volume keys. With this one, it's very nice and it feels nice to click even. And on the other side, you've got your power key over here, which is the same. Oops. You've got your head. I don't know if it's visible from the video. You've got a charging port in the middle, and you've got the headphone jack, which is over here. You've also got like the speaker, which is like a small slot over here. You've got your front facing camera, which is 1.3 megapixels, and the back facing camera, which is 8 megapixels, and you've got your LED flash. I mean, what I like about this design as well is that it's got like a glittery effect to it. I think you can just about see it. It looks really nice. Even in 2016, it's a very nice designed phone, reminiscent of the Galaxy S6, which also has a glass front and glass back. I like the choice of materials, how it's got chrome, like rubber and glass at the front and back. Although this is, you know, a material that's breakable, glass, you know, no matter if it's, you know, Gorilla Glass 4 even, which is the latest generation, it can crack. So I recommend getting a screen protector, as I've got here, and like a case, so something like this, which covers the rim of the actual phone, so it protects it from drops. In terms of the specs of the device, it's got a Snapdragon S4 Pro clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. It's got 2 gigabytes of RAM and 16 gigabytes of internal storage, which is this version. You could get two variants, which is 8 and 16 gigabytes. In terms of like the display of the actual phone, it is still not a bad display. It's a 720p display. It's not like, obviously it's not really a new phone. It's not full HD screen or a quad HD screen or even a 4K screen, but it is still quite nice. Brightness is very nice. The colors do look a little bit washed out, but still the colors, you know, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with the display in sunlight as well. You know, everything's quite visible, so the display is actually not bad. In terms of performance, because this is running stock Android, it tends to, you know, perform very nicely. For example, say like I'm going to open like any app, so if I go into downloads, it opens quite quick. Go into people, contacts, opens quite quick. So that's quite nice. In terms of like fluidity, it's very fluid. Everything is very snappy. The only time I've noticed that it's not snappy is, you know, when you've got low internal storage, it does tend to slow down, and, you know, opening up applications tend to be slow. But, you know, overall, I'd say it's quite a nice experience. Everything loads up quite quickly. So it is a very nice, you know, little handset. Even in 2016, I would say the specs of this phone is, you know, a mid-range device. I would say like mid-range devices from manufacturers such as Samsung, like for example, you know, the Galaxy A3. Like in terms of spec, the actual processor of the Nexus is better than the A3, and the A3 is going around on handset only about £200 in store. And this phone, if you, well, you can't really get it new anymore, but, you know, from even when it was like you could buy it new, which you can't buy anymore, it was still a better price point, and the specs are higher. And the camera on the A3 and, you know, this handset is identical. The front facing camera on the A3 is better, but in terms of raw processing power and the graphics processing unit, compared to mid-range devices such as the A3, the Galaxy J5, and even, you know, the Moto G and the Moto E. The processor is stronger, so even in 2016 it's quite a good all-round device. I would say the specs are about mid-range. In terms of like the software upgrades available, this device can be upgraded to Lollipop 5.1.1, but the version I've chose to run on this phone is actually KitKat version 4.4.4. As you can see here, I'm running the older version, KitKat. I mean, I do have reasons for this. I mean, the reason why I'm, you know, using the old software version is that I feel like it's more stable. I've got another video mentioning some of like the bugs that I had on Lollipop. I mean, when I was running Lollipop, my device would have forced shutdowns of loads of applications, and some applications such as Snapchat would make the whole device shut down. And putting that aside, the device would reboot 3 or 4 times a day randomly, and the power button wouldn't respond for a good 2, 3, 4 minutes. I just had so many problems overall. Even with gaming, the Lollipop's supposed to have less strain on the hardware, but I found in you know, gaming, games started to lag more, so I had issues all on the board. And I've pretty much tried every version of Lollipop, the first version of it, the second version, and the final build, which is 5.1.1. I've had problems with all. I find that on KitKat it runs a lot more stably. I get a lot more, you know, battery out of it. I mean, even if you like the new UI elements to, you know, Lollipop, and the way like the notifications area looks, the settings, I wouldn't say it's a huge difference. In terms of settings, the layout does look different, and you've got a few more features like do not disturb and battery optimizations. But in terms of like the app drawer, it does look identical to Lollipop. The only thing is they've changed the icons. On the Nexus 4, they haven't chosen to bring the new launcher for it, unfortunately. Even when you do get Lollipop on the device, to get the Lollipop launcher with like the white background, you need to download the Google Now launcher. So in terms of the way the software looks, is not any different. It's just with like some software features, as I mentioned, like do not disturb mode, some of the battery optimizations, the memory options. It's got some more options there. But even in terms of battery life, I would say Lollipop hasn't been as good. So it might be different for you guys, but for me, the best version on this is KitKat. So I've chosen to keep it on KitKat. I mean, in terms of comparing it to the latest, you know, flagship devices in 2016, I've used many different types. I mean, obviously, you know, the flagships are much better performance-wise, camera-wise and everything, but I don't think it's fared up too badly. I mean, in terms of launching applications compared to the flagship is about, you know, let's say a second slower, but not, you know, like a huge slowdown. The app management seems to be okay on it, I think. It's not too bad. Everything seems to be working snappy, I would say. You know, it doesn't compare to flagships, but it's not as a major difference as you think it would be. So performance in opening apps is probably less than a second different. In terms of navigating through the UI, it's very fluid as well. So I would still say, you know, it's pretty fluid. This could be due down to having stock Android compared to skinned versions of Android. I'm sure if you had like a skinned version on this, for example, say like it was running TouchWiz, which it can't, but theoretically it would, you know, slow down the actual device. But I think it's very fluid. The only thing I've noticed in terms of performance that's different to the flagships is probably in gaming. I mean, most games it would run fine, but on some high-end games the frame rates would sometimes drop, even though it runs, you know, fluid pretty much throughout. You would get minor frame drops and you'd notice the lag, and especially when there's a lot of moving action. For example, I've played GTA San Andreas on this, and for example, when there's a lot going on in the game, it can tend to lag, especially on San Andreas. I don't get it so much on Vice City. It tends to run more fluid, and then even more fluid on GTA 3. Some of the latest games that have been released, for example FIFA 16, I tested it out to see what how the actual device would perform, and I have noticed some you can play it, but there is major frame drops sometimes. I mean, overall it does run fluid, but you can notice frame drops throughout, so it kind of like judders, slows down. Sometimes when you pass the ball it would completely freeze, and then you'll get a higher frame rate. So it's very inconsistent performance with the latest games, but even so it runs the latest games fairly fluid, even though it's not how I would like it to be, but that's to be expected. I mean, it's not a new device. I mean, to be honest, if you're looking for like a mid-range handset, I would say, because when this was released it was like a flagship model, it still does compare fairly well to the mid-range handsets, as I mentioned, the Galaxy A3, the J5, and even the Moto E and the Moto G. The only thing that's better with the Moto, let me say Moto G, the third generation, it's got a better camera, 13 megapixel compared to just 8 megapixel. The hardware on this is better than the Moto G. I believe it's got a better processor, and the Moto G does have like waterproofing, and you can have a micro SD card slot, which with this unfortunately you can't. But even still, it's not a bad device. I think second hand you can pick it up for about, depending on the condition, about maybe even 60-70 pounds. So it's not a bad mid-range device. It does compare to some of the mid-range devices, especially when Samsung is charging about 250 pounds for their mid-range device. I would say this compares pretty good, I would say. So in terms of the actual camera software on the device, you do have like the Google camera, the standard one you get with Nexus devices. So all the options should be familiar. If I was to do a camera review with this device, I would say that in daylight it does tend to take the best pictures. I know this isn't a really good picture to show you because I'm recording, but just to get like a idea of what the actual camera is like. So in terms of during the day, the camera's quite good on it, I would say, but it doesn't have as much detail, even compared to some of its competitors when it came out, the Galaxy S3. I would say the S3's got better like detail, especially when you zoom. As you can see, like some of the image is blurred and it does lose more detail compared to like other 8 megapixel cameras such as the Galaxy S3. But never to say but it's a good camera. Like during the day I would say it's pretty decent. I wouldn't say it's an excellent camera, but during the day you could get some decent shots. For a mid-range phone, the camera is probably more than enough for you guys. In low light performance, I would say that this camera doesn't do too well. I know you can't really see it on this, but it is very pixelated, and the camera's not really clear and good experience for low light pictures. So, but this is used with flash, so without flash you wouldn't be able to see in low light. I would say in low light it's not too good. And even with flash it does tend to pixelate the image. Probably can't see from here, but it's pixelated everywhere. It doesn't keep a good level of detail. So in terms of video quality, it is the same too. It is capable of taking full HD video, or if you're worried it's going to take too much of the storage, you can downgrade it to 720p. I would say the same with the video recording performance as well. So in low light it doesn't do too well, but in during the day it does take some pretty decent photos, I would say. I mean, what's great about Nexus devices as well is the level of customization stock Android allows you to do. I mean, I've tried many different things in this video. I've got other videos mentioning the ROMs I've installed, and in my experience, the ROMs seem to make the phone much more snappy. You could get more out of the hardware in terms of games and app opening times, but some of them do have bugs, so I recommend you stick to the original software. What I've downloaded though is the exposed framework, which I mentioned in other videos. So I've got additional options here. I've got like a small kind of like camera here. It's kind of like a secret camera, I call it. So you can take a picture, and when you tap it, it takes the picture. I've got a torch here, which wasn't originally there. Sync, ringer mode, the rotation. So in terms of customizability, you can customize this phone pretty much. Even this gesture you can't do on stock Android. So you can add whatever you want here, enlarge the size, change it. I've even chosen to change my icons as well to something more modern. So in terms of customization, there's a lot of ROMs out for it, a lot of different like software applications you could try when you root your phone. So because it's a Nexus device, there tends to be the most mods with them because it's pure stock Android, and it's a lot, you know, easier to customize compared to the other skinned versions of Android. So that's about it, guys. Thank you for watching this video. If you've got any comments or any general questions or requests for any other videos, please do comment on the section below. Thank you for watching, guys.